So earlier today, we reported a breaking news of what looked like a successful coup. And now we have an update. We have the full picture of what just happened. This thing started in the early hours of Sunday morning, but by Sunday afternoon, the entire narrative have flipped on its head. Soldiers stormed Benin Republic State Television, announced they had seized power, and for a real moment, it looked like West Africa was about to witness yet another successful military takeover. But then something unexpected happened. The government fought back and they won. Here is what you need to know. President Patrice Talon is safe. The coup plotters are currently on the run. And most importantly, about a dozen soldiers who launched this mutiny are now in military custody. The attempted takeover lasted just hours. I mean, we are talking hours before loyalist forces regained control and restored normalcy across the country. But the real story isn't just about what happened on the ground in Benin Republic. It's about what happened behind closed doors and on social media that reveals the deeper power shaping West Africa's future. Because within hours of the coup attempt, French President Emmanuel Macron posted let's call it a mysterious message. He has spoken with Nigerian President Bola Tinubu about the crisis. And shortly after that phone call, Nigerian fighter jets were scrambled into Beninese airspace. Coincidence or something more? In this episode, we are going to dig into three critical questions. How did Benin Republic government defeat this coup when so many others have failed? What is France really doing, pulling strings behind the scenes? And what does this failed military coup tell us about West Africa's future and whose hands are really holding the controls in West Africa? Stay with me. The answers are far more revealing than the headline suggests. Let's get into it. By sunrise on Sunday morning, soldiers had seized state television and announced they controlled the country. By midday on Sunday, they were fugitives. So the operation began before dawn on December 7th. Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigri and his military committee for refoundation, that is what they called themselves, they stormed the national broadcaster just as most of Cotonou was still sleeping. Armed soldiers, some wearing combat helmets, appeared on screen, flanked by their commander. They announced that President Patrice Talon had been removed from office, the constitution suspended, and all state institutions dissolved, borders closed, political activity banned, airspace shut down. For a few critical hours, Benin appeared to be the latest domino in West Africa's coup cascade. The broadcast showed military confidence and organizational structure that honestly suggested serious planning. Viewers watching state television saw uniformed soldiers declaring they were giving the Beninese people, and I am paraphrasing here, hope for a new era where fraternity, justice, and work would prevail. But unlike Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and even Guinea-Bissau before it, this takeover never consolidated because loyalist forces moved swiftly, blocking the coup plotters from taking the presidential residence or government offices. The coup plotters controlled only one asset, the television station. They broadcast their message to the nation, but they never held the president, never captured military command, never secured the capital. By midday on Sunday, the Interior Minister Alhassan Saidu appeared on that same television station with a different message. The coup had been crushed. The plotters were fleeing and the republic still stood. The government declared victory, but one critical question hung over Cotonou: where was the president? For hours, no one knew where President Patrice Talon was. And in a coup, and this is important, the leader's silence can be deadlier than gunfire. Presidential aides, they issued vague statements insisting Talon was safe, but they provided no proof, no location, no public appearance. Government spokesperson told reporters that everything was fine, but offered no further details. The foreign minister told news agencies that loyalist forces were regaining control, but still no confirmation about where the president was or whether he was even alive. Foreign embassies started urging their nationals to shelter in place. The French embassy reported gunfire near the presidential residence and advised French citizens to remain indoors. The United States Embassy warned Americans to avoid Cotonou and areas near the presidential compound. Russia's embassy instructed its citizens to stay home and observe basic precautions until the situation became clearer. Citizens were monitoring social media for updates while military convoys patrolled empty streets. And here is the thing: information vacuums, they breed chaos. When leaders disappear during coups, it signals either successful capture by plotters or panic retreat by collapsing government. Benin was trapped in that uncertainty for hours. Then confirmation finally came. A presidential advisor told the BBC that President Talon was safe and was at the French embassy. Finance Minister Ramudwadagni, who is, or should I say, who has been designated as Talon's successor for the April election, told journalists they were clearing things out, but it was not over and they were safe. The president was alive, but as the capital held its breath, waiting for full clarity, another military force was already moving, and it wasn't the Beninese military. While the government in Benin Republic fought to regain control, Nigerian warplanes appeared in the skies above Cotonou shortly after that phone call from President Emmanuel Macron to President Tinubu, and I am guessing that was when the order was delivered. Now, within hours of the mutiny, Nigeria scrambled fighter aircraft from Lagos to conduct surveillance operations over Beninese airspace. The deployment signaled Nigeria's willingness to intervene militarily in a neighboring state facing political crisis. Security sources describe it as a proactive measure to monitor development and assess threats to Nigeria's territorial security. Nigerian officials framed the action as both humanitarian concern and strategic self-interest, because instability in Benin Republic, according to Nigerian officials, because Benin Republic borders Nigeria's southwest, it could trigger refugee inflows, economic disruption, and security spillover across one of Africa's busiest land borders. Nigeria's defense headquarters authorized the surveillance mission, and the aircraft operated within Beninese airspace throughout the morning. The decision echoed Nigeria's historical role in West African peacekeeping through ECOMOG missions during Liberia and Sierra Leone's civil wars. But this deployment was different. It happened within hours of a coup announcement, which suggests either pre-positioned contingency planning or rapid coordination with external actors. By afternoon, Nigeria withdrew the fighter aircraft after assessing that the security situation has stabilized and there was no immediate threat to Nigeria's territorial security. That was the official story. But from where I stand, we both know that phone call from Emmanuel Macron did the trick. It did the magic. Security forces, they told Nigerian media that the aircraft were ordered to return to base after receiving updated intelligence indicating the situation was under control. This development lasted just hours, but its timing and execution, they raised questions about how Nigeria knew to respond so quickly. But Nigeria's decision to scramble jets didn't happen in isolation, because minutes before the deployment, a phone call was made from Emmanuel Macron himself to President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria. Now back to that phone call that Emmanuel Macron made with the president of Nigeria. It happened at around 12 p.m. in the afternoon. That is according to West African time. French President Emmanuel Macron posted a message on social media. By the time you read it, Nigerian fighter jets were already airborne. Macron's post on X revealed he had spoken with Nigerian President Bola Tinubu about the coup in Benin Republic. He conveyed France's solidarity in the face of various security challenges, particularly the terrorist threat in northern Nigeria. Macron pledged to strengthen partnership with authorities and called on all partners to step up their engagement. Then came the line that sparked controversy. According to Emmanuel Macron, at his request, We will strengthen our partnership. Those were his exact words. The phrasing suggested Tinubu had asked for French support, but the timing raised some uncomfortable questions. Did Nigeria act independently to protect regional stability, or did Paris coordinate the response? Macron declared that no one can remain a spectator, positioning France as the power calling for regional intervention. For critics of French neocolonialism, and there are many, including myself, this looked like classic post-colonial meddling. France leveraging a regional power to protect its interests in a francophone client state. France has strategic interest in maintaining influence in Benin Republic after losing Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to military government that expelled French troops and turned towards Russia and China. Benin Republic remains one of France's key allies on the Gulf of Guinea coast. The country hosts French economic interests, cultural institutions, and security cooperation agreements. Social media users, including myself, are questioning whether Nigerian sovereignty was being respected or whether Tinubu was, for lack of a better word, following instructions from a former colonial power. The optics, they revived old narratives about neo-colonial interference and African leaders acting at the behest of European capitals. Now, while Emmanuel Macron was busy coordinating response with Nigeria all the way from Paris, the men who launched the coup were running for their lives. Now, the soldier who declared himself Benin's new leader this morning is now a fugitive. Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigri, who appeared on state television flanked by armed officers to announce the takeover. He is on the run according to multiple sources, including Nigerian Special Advisor Bayo Onanoga. Onanoga, that is Nigerian Special Advisor to President Tinubu, he confirmed that Pascal Tigri, the leader of the coup, who seized the country's national television on Sunday, fled as defense and security forces thwarted the attempted coup. Some members of his group have been arrested, though Benin's government has not released official numbers or identities. According to media sources, approximately a dozen soldiers involved in the coup attempt have been arrested. Interior Minister Alhassan Seidu appeared on national television, announced that a small group of soldiers had launched a military coup aimed at destabilizing the state and institutions. But the Beninese armed forces and their leadership, true to their oath, remain committed to the republic. This is according to the minister. Now, the rapid disintegration of this mutiny reveals critical failures. Tigri and his group controlled only the television station, never the presidential residence, never government offices, never the military command structure. Without institutional control, their coup was honestly performative theater broadcast to a nation that never believed it. Tigri's grievances cited in his television statement reflected broader military frustrations. That is, deteriorating security in northern Benin, where jihadist threats are spreading from Burkina Faso and Niger, neglect of fallen soldiers and their families, and unjust military promotions favoring politically connected officers over deserving personnel. Ongoing security operations continue to capture remaining fugitives, but Tigri's fake coup didn't happen in a vacuum. It was sparked by a political crisis months in the making. Now, you will agree with me that military coups don't just appear from nowhere. They grow in soil poisoned by bad governance, and Benin's soil has been toxic for months, because back in November, that was just last month, Benin's parliament extended presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, triggering accusations of democratic backsliding and elite entrenchment. The amendment passed with 90 votes in favor and 19 against, meeting the required majority. But the speed and opacity of the process triggered alarm bells across civil society and opposition ranks. The reform also established a Senate expected to include former presidents and presidential appointees, raising fears about weakened checks on executive power. The main opposition party was excluded from the April 2026 presidential race through restrictive electoral laws, requiring candidates to secure sponsorships from 16 members of parliament, nearly all of whom belong to parties aligned to President Talon. The main opposition candidate was rejected by the Electoral Commission on the grounds that he did not have sufficient sponsors, leaving only Talon's chosen successor, that is the Finance Minister Mahmoud Wadagni, and one hand-picked challenger on the ballot. Earlier this year, that was back in January, 2 Talon associates were sentenced to 20 years in prison for an alleged 2024 coup plot, signaling paranoia and I think it's fair to say repression within the regime. Benin's democratic rating collapsed from 82 points out of 100 back in 2017 to 59 in 2023, according to Freedom House. Now, this latest development, these coup plotters, they cited these grievances alongside security failures, soldier neglect, and promotion injustices, reflecting broader institutional decay and authoritarian governance under President Talon's decade-long rule. The pattern across the region shows constitutional manipulation increasingly preceding military intervention. The conditions were right for a coup. So what made this one fail when so many others succeeded? 9 coups have succeeded in West Africa since 2020. Benin just became the exception, and the reasons why matter for the entire region. First, institutional loyalty. The regular armed forces and military command remained committed to the constitutional order, refusing to join or legitimize Tigris mutiny. Interior Minister Seydou praised the Beninese armed forces for staying true to their oath and maintaining control of the situation. The second reason I am seeing here is limited penetration. The coup plotters, they seized only symbolic infrastructure, the television station, without capturing actual power centers like the presidential residence, government offices, or military headquarters. Another reason why this coup may have failed is rapid response. Interior Minister Seydou's swift counter-messaging on state media prevented an information vacuum and restored public confidence. The fourth is regional solidarity. ECOWAS issued an immediate condemnation and threatened to deploy standby forces to defend Benin's constitution and territorial integrity. The regional bloc held coup leaders individually and collectively responsible for any loss to life and property. Nigeria's military surveillance and international pressure created a hostile environment for coup consolidation. Another reason I'm seeing here is failed leadership capture. President Talon's safety, confirmed by afternoon at the French embassy, denied plotters legitimacy and prevented a power vacuum. The African Union strongly and unequivocally condemned the attempted military coup, urging all actors to immediately cease unlawful actions and return to their barracks. Comparing this to a successful coup in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and even in Guinea-Bissau last month, it shows that Benin's institution held where others collapsed. But unanswered questions, they remain. Will political tensions persist? Will Tigray be captured? Will the April 2026 elections proceed peacefully? Benin's institutions held today, but the crisis that sparked this military coup hasn't been resolved. As the region watches, one question lingers. Did Benin just show West Africa how to defeat a coup, or did it only delay the inevitable? Now, if you are watched to this point, this is Frontline Africa, where we bring you the stories that matter, where we talk about geopolitics from Africa's own point of view. Now, our initial report was on the initial assessment of what happened. And after more information filtered in, it became necessary to have a follow-up episode in order to clear the air and actually bring the reality of what is on ground to my audience. Now, it is official. The coup failed. A lot of people hoped that the coup is actually successful because what happened in Benin Republic is similar to what happened in Togo. Constitutional manipulation, a manipulation that will keep the current people that are ruling the country in power indefinitely. And you can see how swiftly ECOWAS and the African Union, they all reacted. But did you notice their silence when the constitutional manipulation happened? Yes, it's almost like they want the constitutional manipulation to happen so that their men in power will somehow remain in the corridors of power. This is the corruption being encouraged by ECOWAS, the African Union. And now, there's one critical question I want to ask. What is Emmanuel Macron and France? What is their role in all of this? Because explain to me why the president went to French embassy to seek protection in the face of a military coup. All places he could have gone to, he went to the French embassy. And guess what happened? Emmanuel Macron called President Tinubu, and you can't tell me it is a coincidence that after that call, Tinubu scrambled fighter jets into the airspace of Benin Republic Are you telling me that the French president gave the order? Explain to me in a language I can understand in the comment section if you don't agree with what I'm saying. I believe this was a direct order by Emmanuel Macron to the president of Nigeria to militarily intervene if order was not restored as quickly as it was restored. And things would have gone way out of hand. Let's assume the coup succeeded. Right now, the military of Nigeria will be fully deployed in Benin Republic because it appears that France cannot allow this coup to stand. This is a stark reality on ground. Democracy is being trampled upon and they don't want the military to come. Either give us democracy or allow the military to come in. That is where I stand. This is where I stand. Now go to the comment section and tell me where you stand in this matter. And if you want to continue to see my content, maybe consider to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I am still your host, Ezekiel Enejeta, and I will see you in the next one. It's a bye-bye for now.